So I want to tell this story about a will that I held in my hand years ago that I even remember today very clearly. It tells such an important story about what people need to understand about estate planning and wills. Frankly, it's part of the reason why, lawyers just love these self-drawn wills or these wills that are done online because it tells you where it can definitely go wrong. So this will comes in, and I'll never forget, dude hands it to me, and it's in one of these tubes, and I open it up, and it's parchment paper. I hadn't even seen parchment paper. It's written in calligraphy, actually handwritten, and it was notarized. I'll never forget, it had this wax stamp on it, that red wax stuff. And I could just feel it, and I could roll this thing out there. And then, even more than the will itself, was the story about how this thing was created, and I'll never forget that, right? So the people that prepared this, described this really formal process that they went through. The backstory on this thing is even more important, right? So dude was married over elsewhere, and this was decades prior, right? So he was married, had kids, was married. He leaves and comes over to this part of the state, kept a good relationship with the kid, the ex-wife, blah, 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 got divorced, gets into this same-sex marriage, right? This was before the time when same-sex marriage was recognized, but the whole point of this formal ceremony was, in the absence of being recognized as a spouse, they were doing this will and making the partner formally recognized in this will. And again, so they described that all their friends were over, wine, they dressed nicely, and they're showing me pictures literally of this scene. And I can only describe it as very similar to like Eyes Wide Shut. And they were very proud of this. But the thing about this is, and this is the real story, this is where it's wrong, is that with all that fancy to do, I picture that pen, the calligraphy deal with little feathers on it or whatever else like that, and all that effort that was put into making it into calligraphy and written it out by hand, it violated 732.502, which is a very specific statute that describes how a will is done. A will doesn't care about your calligraphy, doesn't care about your parchment paper, doesn't care about your wax stamp. Will in Florida wants, two things. Dead guy got to sign it, and then witnesses on there. Ain't got witnesses, doesn't mean anything. Don't care about notary. Notary's a whole separate issue, really important to do. A technical thing about why you got to have a notary on there. But you don't got a notary on there, that thing can still come in. This fancy pants, Eyes Wide Shut will didn't come in, and the litigation about it was really interesting because, again, back before the day of surviving spouse or same-sex marriage, this all could have been prevented had the people gotten proper legal advice. Everything I talk about here are broad outlines, broad strokes, where people complain about attorneys that make a lot of money, estates where lawyers are charging a bunch, $500, $600, $700 an hour, can largely be avoided with experienced estate planning practitioners at the front end that understand how to put these wills together, understand how to do estate planning. And yeah, it costs a couple $1,000s to do it correctly. And if you're not willing to pay a couple $1,000s to do it correctly at the front end, don't come marching through this office. My word of warning to you, advice is, if you're not willing to pay a couple $1,000s, don't do estate planning, because chances are you can screw that up so that on the other end, you're going to be paying not just a couple $1,000s to do the estate plan. You're going to be spending tens of thousands of dollars to unmess up the situation that you messed up because you didn't pay that money right at the front end. So if you are thinking about estate planning, or you were involved in a will in a probate situation where there's some funky little things going on with that will, like and subscribe here. There's more information that will come, including sort of a checklist of what kind of things you need to be looking for in a will, in estate planning, what makes it valid, what makes it invalid.